All right, back together again. Finally, we're gonna get. We picked up where we dropped off was the third verse of Proverbs 16, but we're gonna go back and just start with Proverbs 16:1, and then go to 16:4, and just gonna take those four verses in and then move on from there. So hit it, Steve.
The preparations of the heart belong to man. The answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. The Lord has made all for himself. Yes, even the wicked way of doom, wicked for the day of doom.
So, one of the key verses for 16 is 3, right? Mine reads, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. What was yours, Steve?
Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established.
Yeah. So
your thoughts will be established is not real clear.
yeah, I think that's just like mine says your plans. So the plans will succeed. In yours it's saying equating my plans with my thoughts.
Yeah.
So,
Commend what you do to the Lord, and your plans will find achievement.
yes, yes. So it's not when we're talking about the plans, what are the plans? Well, is the plans that I got to come down at 6 o'clock in the morning and put dog food in the dog bowl?
Sure.
Yeah. What else?
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. So the plans aren't just I'm going to actually sit down and make a plan, or I have a chore list that I have to do. I don't just say, okay, Lord, I've got these 44 things I just put bullets next to. Can I commit these to you and take care of it. That's an addition to everything else. So my plans are how I comport myself every moment of every day. So the proverb is saying if you commit yourself to God, then you'll succeed. And what will you succeed in? You'll succeed in whatever you do, because the success of what you're doing is the commitment to God. If I'm trying to build a wall and the wall doesn't get built, but I have sanctified the wall to God and I've given myself over to God in the building of it, then if that wall doesn't get built, then it's not because it was a failure. It was that I believe that for whatever reason, I wasn't led to build the wall.
I think it's slightly different than that.
Okay.
And if you commit your works to the Lord, or if you commit yourself to God and then make your plans will be
In sync.
in sync with the Lord, and actually you'll be working toward His purposes, not yours. And then but so what you do will succeed. But if you make your plans before you commit yourself to God, then it's catch as catch can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. So I think we're on the same page.
Oh.
It's just everything. It's if I'm going to do anything, I do it to God. So the things that don't work are the things that I've not committed. They're my things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has to do with what there's a sequence. You have to commit before you plan.
Right. Yep. So if you go back to 16, I mean, these all kind of feed into it. 16:1, the man belongs to the plans of the heart, mine says, but from the Lord comes the reply of the tongue. So man's plans, human beings process, our desire, our wants are in our heart. And that's our thing. We're doing our thing. All man's ways seem innocent to him is 2 for me. So we make our plans and we think our plans are good. And I have a good reason for making my plans. But it's the third one that tells of how I'm going to actually have success. And that's commit to the Lord, whatever you do. I make everything as Steve is saying, make the decision to commit first and then make the plans. And then the plans will be in sync with God. The Lord works everything out for his own ends. The other word that's used there in the Hebrew, it's translated as purpose. The Lord does everything for God's own purpose. So everything is If we think that, if we believe that, and we live that way, then we're really set free. Because if we are committed to God and giving and in sync with God and giving ourselves over to God, we know that whatever happens and how it happens is to the glory of God, God's purpose, God's intention. So it says, even the wicked for the day of disaster. That's part of the purpose, part of the plan. We may not like that part of the plan, but that's part of the plan. What the author of Proverbs is saying is that nothing is outside of the realm of God, the direction of God, the plans of God. We didn't do the song.
I know.
I know. Should we stop and do the song? Let's take a break. Be right back. Okay, we're back again. So, all right, who wants to keep going with 5? Let's take 5 to let's see, the second break is 17. How about that? 5 to 17.
Oy. Sure. The arrogant heart is abhorrent to the Lord. Be sure it will not go unpunished. By kindliness and loyalty, atonement is made for sin. With the fear of the Lord goes avoidance of evil. Let the Lord be pleased with a man's way of life, and he makes his very enemies into friends. Better have little and with it virtue than great revenues and no right to them. A man's heart plans out his way, but it is the Lord who makes his steps secure. The lips of the king utter oracles. He does not err when he speaks in judgment. To the Lord belong the balance and scales. All the weights in the bag are of his making. Evil doing is abhorrent to kings, since virtue is the throne's foundation. Virtuous lips are welcome to a king. He loves a man of honest words. The king's wrath is the herald of death, but a wise man will appease it. When the king's face brightens, it spells life. His favor is like the rain in spring. Better gain wisdom than gold. Choose discernment rather than silver. To turn from evil is the way of honest men. He keeps his life safe, who watches where he goes.
All right. Woof. That was a lot, but all good, right? So you want to take it one by one? Anyone stand out to anybody? I know we have a bunch of different translations here, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I have marked from before verse 8 and 9 and 12
All
and
right.
16.
That's good.
But I was looking at the chapter, and I'm not sure what I underlined was the end of anything.
You said 8, 12, 9, and 16?
8, 9, 12, and 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
8, 12.
And
Let's see. Mine reads 8 is better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice. So that's pretty straightforward. I like to think that the little, our culture and our society demand that it's never a little, it's always a lot. Whether it's what you're going to eat, you have to have a lot, you have to have a whole lot, a whole different stuff, got to have a lot, or what you get, or what you buy, or how you get it. You got to have a lot of it. We have to have a lot of stuff. We have to have a lot. But this is taking a different look at it, saying, no, just a little bit. If the little bit is righteous, if the little bit is according to God's will and God's purpose, then it is enough. And what continues, then have much with injustice. So what's the injustice in that could easily be my desire for more. And I just keep gathering to myself, I had a friend who could never eat as much food as he took. He was sincerely a glutton. And I pined for him because it was part of him. It was something that he had to do. It was I don't know, a place of comfort, but at the same time, it was a place of destruction for him. You might imagine the result of doing that. If he took so much food that he couldn't eat it, and that he did that all the time, you imagine that he could eat a lot of food, and he still would leave food because he still took too much. So way too much. It's his leaning on himself and not being able to get beyond himself. But it says a little bit, just a little bit's all we need. if it's the Lord's righteousness, if it's the Lord's gift to us, then it doesn't have to be very much. It's really countercultural, counter what we're taught to do in our lives, to acquire, to receive, and to get. In his heart, a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. That's 9 in my translation. In his heart, a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. So I'm wondering, when we read these, if we're talking about the man or the person, the man or woman who's committed themselves to the Lord. So do you think that's what this is talking about here? The man or the woman
Sure. I mean, okay, just because you've committed yourself to the Lord, it's not the Midas touch,
Sure.
right? So you make your plans, you know that it might not happen, right? And your ego isn't in it.
Right.
I'm going to try, right? And so then when it does work, whatever, then God set that up, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with the things that didn't go.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just,
Yeah, it's like what you talk about with the different ministries that, give it a try, see if
Yep.
see if it's for you. If it's not, then you found something that doesn't work.
And I remember, I think you guys, I've heard this story from so many people, and maybe everybody has this story where you made a plan to go to the grocery store or to go out to the hardware store or to go to the park. And at the last minute, something happened and you stayed home. And then you left 20 minutes later. And when you left 20 minutes later and you're walking to the end of your driveway to get in your car, your neighbor fell down and hurt herself and couldn't get back up. And if you'd been at the store, there'd been nobody there to see her. It's those kind of providential moments where your plan is to do one thing, but you wind up in a place or in a time or in a circumstance that you had no plan to be in. In fact, it's kind of against your plan. Your plan got foiled a little bit along the way, and you wound up in just the right place to make a difference. Just the right place to be. I remember my mom saying one time, she did this a lot, but I can't remember, Sue, you might remember the circumstances here, but she was going to the store. She's going to meet, what's her name? Oh, what's that? Oh, that lady, her friend.
Edith.
Edith, yes. Going to see Edith. And she was all set to go, and then she couldn't find her keys. And she didn't go, and she was 5 minutes late. And when she got to the end of Brickyard, or it was up by the fire department, that road to the right, was it Oakland Drive? Was that Oakland? Oakland. Right before she got there was an accident. And so she contended that if she'd found her keys, the car that ran the stop sign would have been hitting her and not the other person. So, that kind of thing. She's saying, what was it that did this? How come this happens? And is that God working to our best interest?
Well, and it's kind of hard for me to see God in that, because somebody else was in the car that got hit.
Yeah.
And so somebody was in that car.
Yeah.
So did God prevent your friend from getting hit so somebody else could get hit?
Well, what if God's trying to prevent everybody from getting hit? But everybody's overriding what God's doing. Like, it's that thing your friend tells you not to go and you go anyway. Somebody winds up in that position. It's just,
we
there
were
was
coming
another
home
one
from Steve's mom, and this guy came rushing past us, and I thought, I was driving, I'm going to slow down. I don't want to be around him. And he kept speeding up, and he went from a flagrantly red light, and all of a sudden, this policeman went and got him. But I was thinking, I'm so glad I wasn't anywhere around him.
Yeah.
Because he's a disaster.
Yeah. So
Happily, it was just the police.
What you didn't participate in, you didn't become the other half of a road rage incident.
No, he terrified me.
In the world we live in, the person that does that kind of thing, there's another person that goes after him, and you have this big blew up on the road. So, it's God's working in the life of the people that are being accosted by him, but God's working in his life to stop him from doing what he's doing as well. Do we listen or not? Most of the time we don't listen. That's the problem. We just won't hear what God is doing or giving God credit for what's happening. Maybe, Steve, it could be that God stopped that other person, delayed them as well. But instead of taking the delay like mom did and kind of just mom would be delayed and just pray the whole time. She'd be praying about her keys and where she was going and praying for Edith and just keep praying and praying and praying. So but the other person, say God delayed the other person, but instead of being a person who prayed and prayed and prayed, that person got in the car and went 85 miles an hour and made up time and got in the accident. Because they didn't take that moment. They didn't let that become a moment for them. They overrode it. I'm not suggesting, one of the saddest phrases that has been abused in history is, "But there for the grace of God go I." Because it seems to imply that the other person's been cursed in some way or something, or I have been given preferential treatment by God, and this other person has been, left to hang. But the impetus behind that is more along the line of saying that I see myself in this other person. I see myself in their hurt, their pain, their suffering. And the grace that I've experienced isn't from God's preference to me. It's my devotion to God. God extends his grace to everybody. God's grace is to call us and to hold us and to save us and to keep us. Unmerited grace is what we have. We don't deserve any of it, and God does it anyway. But, you and I don't get anything if we don't allow ourselves to receive it.
And sometimes stuff happens.
Yeah. Remember, I'm fond of saying, Paul writes, when he says, what can keep us from the love of God? And he goes through a whole list, this and
Hi,
that.
Deb.
Yep, all the stuff. But he leaves one thing out, and it's, he's really talking about saying God's grace is going to come to me despite all these terrible things happening in my life. God's grace will come. But what he leaves out is saying, but I have to be willing to accept it. I've established that God's grace comes to me, but if I don't accept it, it doesn't make any difference. I might as well say God's grace doesn't come to me. The only thing that can keep God's grace from coming to me, really it is from me being aware of God's grace, is me. A mountain falling, a bird, a plane crashing, a flood, a tsunami, or whatever, huge monumental things. I could see the grace of God coming to me in the midst of all this stuff. Something as small as stubbing my toe in my kitchen, and I could block God's grace out completely. It's all up to us. We get to choose. Let's see what else you had. 12. Kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established through righteousness. Well, that's hopeful, isn't it?
Well, the guy who's collecting these things
Yes,
is a king.
that's right. That's true.
So,
yep. So the good kings detest wrongdoing. I guess, if you're a king and you tell somebody to do something wrong, it's not wrong if the king asks them to do it. So whatever the king asks you to do is, whatever the king says you should do is right? So the king's never wrong.
Yeah. That's
and don't go there today.
Yeah. For a throne is established in righteousness. Okay, and you had 16 was the last one. How
Yeah.
much better to get wisdom than gold, to choose understanding rather than silver? Oh yeah, okay. Yep. The king's wrath is messenger of death, but the eyes the king's face of brightness means life, his favor takes it. Yeah, so that's worldly goods, right? Worldly pleasures, worldly possessions. If I build my life up by my possessions and I don't turn to God, then it's just fodder. It's worthless. My wisdom is well beyond any of the earthly or temporal things that we would have.
Well, wisdom keeps giving.
Yeah. Interest upon interest.
Well, that's that one. What was the one about That was 15 in the light,
16.
no, the one about the king. In the light of
Oh,
the king,
12.
12.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You have to look at that in the light of 3,
Yep.
because that's yeah, commit yourself to the Lord, and you'll make plans in sync with the Lord. But yeah, and if you look at 12 in that light, it makes sense.
Mhm.
If you look at it by itself, it becomes
Problematic.
problematic.
Well, if we assume that the king is a good and righteous person,
Right,
and
is
not the owner,
himself committed.
right, then it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but
All right, we stopped at 16. How about 17 through 26?
Okay, I will read it.
Okay.
The path of the upright avoids misfortune. He who pays attention to his way safeguards his life. Pride goes before disaster, and a haughty spirit before a fall. It is better to be humble with the meek than to share plunder with the proud. He who plans a thing will be successful. Happy is he who trusts in the Lord. The wise man is esteemed for his discernment, yet pleasing speech increases his persuasiveness. Good sense is a fountain of life to its possessor, but folly brings chastisement on fools. The mind of the wise man makes him eloquent and augments the persuasiveness of his lips. Pleasing words are a honeycomb, sweet to the taste and healthful to the body. Sometimes a way seems right to a man, but the end of it leads to death. The laborer's appetite labors for him, for his mouth urges him on.
So we're really moving from the positive to the negative again, right? We're moving to all these. I like the how it goes. So we have the 18, pride goes, but that's a famous quote, right? Pride goes.
Right, pride goes before a fall.
Yeah. So we have that one. That's another one of the prime passages from 16:3 and 18 or 1 and 2. A haughty spirit before the fall. So we're not just talking about pride, we're talking about motivation as well as execution. Better to be lowly in spirit and among the oppressed than to share the plunder of the proud. So we're really talking about our manner of life, our perspective, what we're willing to do and who we're willing to be. 20 is mine says, whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is he who trusts the Lord. So 20 starts this, instead of having the juxtaposition of one half good, one half bad, from 20 to 24 is good, 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 good. Right? The wise and heart are called discerning. The pleasant words promote instruction. Understanding a fountain of life for those who have it. Folly brings, I guess folly is the exception, 22. A wise man's heart guides his mouth, and his lips promote instruction. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. I love that one. 20.
I like that one.
Yeah, so nice. That should be on a plaque somewhere. There is a way that seems right to a man. This is 25, but in the end, it leads to death. 26.
Which is the same thing as 14:12.
Yeah, it's repeating. We're doing that repeating thing again. The laborer's appetite works for him, but hunger drives him on. So that's an interesting one. What's yours say, Sue? 26?
The laborer's appetite labors for him, for his mouth urges him on.
What about yours, Carolee?
A worker's appetite works on his behalf. His hungry mouth drives him on.
25 seems weird to me. There's, mine is, there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end of the way is death. Um. And again, I've seen this in other verses or said this about other verses. Uh, if there's a way that seems right to you, what other way can you go?
I think that
And
if you don't do what we were talking about in 3, if you don't commit yourself to the Lord, so your plans are yours, you're following your own appetites, your selfishness, your desires. So there's no, I think it's right to get as much stuff as I can possibly get and abuse whoever I need to abuse to get it. That's what's right for me.
Yeah.
So
I'd question your sense of right and wrong.
well, if I'm living in any way or fashion like that, I'm certainly not living committed to God.
Yeah,
Oh, now mine says there's a way that some think right, but it leads in the end to death.
Yeah.
I've always thought this meant like people say, well, socially it's okay. And so it's just a little wiggle. But no, that's the first, then you're stuck in a compromising situation. And it's way harder to back out of it
Right.
than it was to not go there.
Right.
But I know it is one of those, but wait, how can
Yeah, well,
I thought it was right.
if we take the commitment out of this, so you've got I'm not devoted to God. I don't know who Jesus is. I'm not committed to a righteous life in the Lord, a humble life, a life that's following wisdom. I'm committed to a life where I follow what I want to make me happy. So for me, that's right. That's my righteous plan. That's a good plan. That's the plan I have to make me happy any way I can. But without God, it leads to death. It leads to destruction. That's what we're hearing over and over again. All the accumulating gold and silver and all the things that I think make me happy will not make me happy in the end. And I think I've shared with you some stories about when I was a chaplain at the Washington Hospital Center, when I would go in to visit people who had lots of money and were in a state of panic because they just got the word that they weren't leaving the hospital. So all the stuff they've done their whole life to accumulate and make money and had the second house in the Hamptons and all the other stuff that they did because they thought it was right. That was the right thing to do to make themselves happy and comfortable. In the end, it's not, they're without any kind of conversion, they will die in their panic, and there are many that did. They went right down to the grave thinking at the very last that they could do something to make this right. I remember very clearly a guy who said almost like the same words, I can make this right. Yeah. And then came the coma and then came the death. Yeah. Let's see, we're so close here. 27 to 32. Gail, you want to read?
Okay.
Okay.
An ungodly man digs up evil, and it is on his lips like a burning fire. A perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends. A violent man entices his neighbor and leads him in a way that is not good. He winks his eye to devise perverse things. He pursues his lips and brings about evil. The silver-haired head is a crown of glory. If it is found in the way of righteousness. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city.
Ooh.
I think there's one more.
No, 33?
Yeah.
A lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord.
Good.
I'm not sure I understand that last one.
A lot is cast into the into the lap,
Let's see.
but it's every decision.
I have a footnote that says the ephod was worn on the high priest's breast
Oh,
is identified with the ephod that held the sacred lots.
yeah. Yeah, remember that
So-
a common event for choosing or discerning God's will, like throwing the bones, was to draw lots. Remember, that's how Matthias was chosen to take the place of Judas as an apostle. To draw lots and see. They believe that by drawing lots and leaving it up to, quote, chance, it's really not chance, it's providence, and that by drawing lots that God's will would be made known. So let's see, a lot is cast in the lap, so I cast my lot to find God's will, and every decision is from the Lord, so that I follow the lot that I've cast. We don't believe in that these days. In fact, I've heard people say that's a ridiculous thing to do. But I had a practice for a while. I haven't done it in a long time. Maybe I should do it again. I had a practice of, I had a very worn, soft cover Bible. And I still have it somewhere. I got to go find that Bible. And I would, when I got into something that was really, I was just flummoxed by it, I would take my Bible and just heave it into my room. I just don't even look where it landed. I just throw it. And then I'd wait, and then I'd go and read it and see what I read. And it sounds stupid, but I was shocked by the number of times that passage that I let on, page that I put on, it matched exactly what I was working with. And I did this at a monastery in Santa Barbara. And I didn't touch my Bible. I went into my little room and I threw my Bible, and I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what was good for me, and I had made up my mind, and I didn't touch it. I just leaned over the bed and read it. And I walked right back out of my cell and went and got the prior of the order and asked him to come in my room and read it with me. Because it was exactly what I had spoken to the prior about an hour before. I mean, exactly. It could not have been more. It wasn't like a suggestion about doing something. It was exactly what I was talking about. So is that God? I'm fond of saying, why not? What's the harm?
It's hard to open the Bible somewhere where there isn't something appropriate.
Yeah. Oh, I know you can find it there, but this was not that way.
Right.
This stuff is like, I'm talking about stealing and how to respond to it. That wasn't it, but metaphorically. And then opening the Bible where it says a man stole. I mean, it's right the very first thing. It's not, something about being honest and doing a good job that you can apply to the stealing. It was dead on. So this is akin to the drawing lots, saying that we have a question. The question is related. We've provided the parameters for that question to be answered, and we've thrown those lots, believing that God's going to give us the answer. So later on the night, try throwing your Bible and see what happens. It has to be soft-sided, though. I tried it with a hard side.
I was going to say, some of my Bibles are such a mess.
No, just soft-sided Bible. I don't have I know I have it somewhere, but I don't have to find
And
it.
some of them flopping open better than others.
That's right. Soft-sided. Soft-sided one. Much better chance. Hard-sided ones are harder to do. All right, we have let's see, 6 minutes. Want to read a little bit more into 17?
Sure.
Wait for next.
Verse 30. He who closes his eyes meditates mischief.
Yeah,
He who purses his lips has already done wrong.
yeah.
Which was different from what Gail's version.
Winks his eye.
Winks.
Yeah, this was closes his eyes.
Plotting perversity. Mine's got plotting perversity.
Oh, and 32. Better an equable man than a hero,
Yeah.
a man master of himself, than one who takes a city. Although I liked Gail's version better, but
Yeah, I like Gail's version. Mine says he is slow to anger, is better than the mighty.
Yeah,
And let me see if my notes say that, if that references James, or James references this.
That makes sense.
James 32. Patient man of the Lord.
Slow to anger, yeah, James 1:19-20.
uh-huh.
So that would be, that's my favorite verse in the whole Bible.
Read it.
What?
Read it. James.
Um,
It's
let me see if it's the same as I remember it.
it's
Yeah,
close.
yeah, it says be slow
Yeah.
to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen.
Yes. Yes.
Hebrew James.
I wish I did that very often, but
So James was reading Proverbs. That was
Funny thing about that.
well, isn't there a bunch of the New Testament references the Old?
sure. Absolutely. Slow to anger.
I find it's funny that you see these things in the New Testament and it's like so close. And then you have a footnote and said, oh, that was it. So paraphrasing is fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially if you think that people haven't read. I mean, if you're going to bring forward Proverbs and people haven't read them, then you're
Right.
paraphrasing it. Other times, we've established that Jesus was saying something that's new to us, but it would have been very clear to the people he was talking to. And he said, I didn't come to abolish the law, I came to fulfill it. So his continually quoting the Old Testament was putting everything within the context of what God had already done. He wasn't being novel. He didn't do anything that was novel except for be God, be the Son. Everything.
Well, there's that. Was it one of your sermons? I think said that that sign about Jesus when he was crucified. Why have you forsaken me? Everybody, maybe it was Nolan that told me that. Everybody that at that time saw that would have thought of a whole psalm, or a whole.
That's correct.
It would have meant a whole paragraph to them,
Yes.
where it just means a line to us.
Yes, absolutely. That kind of thing is wonderful too. And for us, that's the value of doing Bible study, because when you do the Bible study, if you're studying the crucifixion event and you read that part in the gospel, then when that gets to that place, you go back and read the psalm. Whereas
Yeah.
if we don't do that, then think about the people that come at Christmas and Easter and don't have anything in between. And they don't have any idea what's connected to what. They just think it's a one-off event. This takes place.
Like, the Episcopal prayer book is quoted by the Bible.
That's right. That's right. Doggone it.
My kids used to say that. It was like,
Yeah, there's a lot, and they did that on purpose. The framers, when Kramer was doing the prayer book, and in the 1662, 1559, the revisions that came along afterward, did that on purpose so that people were being taught parts of the Bible without even knowing it. So when they finally came across it in Scripture, they would do exactly what the
my
boys
kids did.
Yeah. Say,
That's kind of interesting, because wasn't at that time, what wasn't reading the Bible discouraged? You were supposed to let your priest interpret it for you. So
Yep.
then they had people reading the prayer book and learning some of the Bible, reading some of the Bible.
Sneaky, huh?
Yeah.
See, there's always a workaround. You got to do what's right. You always can figure out a way to work it around. All right, guys, we've hit the witching hour. So, Sue, can you stay on for a minute? I wanted to chat with you about something.
Sure.
That'd be great. Everybody else, it's been great. My favorite night of the week. Sorry, I've been absent for a couple of them, but we're back on track now, so I look forward to it. So,
Good night.
have a wonderful
Later.
night, everyone. See you later.
Bye.